Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. Hey guys, excited to have everyone join us on another one of these Business of Digital podcasts. Hey Dave, how's it going?
It is going, sir. It is certainly going today.
You know, we had a lot of rain down here. You know, for the summertime in Phoenix, it cooled off a little bit. We'll take anything we can get.
Wah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about weather, right? We're here to talk about, we're going to rant about stuff today. No,
we're going to rant about different stuff today.
Literally, this session is a rant session. And so,
it's called Dave Rant, but not really.
Yes, Dave Rant on webinars and meetings. And so, like I was telling you, Dave, before we started recording, I wanted to share with everybody just kind of one of my favorite experiences with meetings. Like, if anybody knows me, they know that I hate meetings. Like, I hate meetings with a passion. I will do anything I can to get out of meetings. I understand sometimes they're important and needed, but most of the time I think I would say probably 95% of the meetings that I've attended over the years have been just a waste of my time. And so way back in the day when I used to work in corporate America, before I started anything, I was kind of had my side hustle going and building it up. I worked for this corporate, business, and it was just another one of those Monday meetings, and I was sitting in there, and I was just like, something came over me, and I was like, this is an absolute waste of my time. And I just stood up and I started walking out, and one of the guys there was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm leaving. This is pretty much a waste of time. And I just walked out of the room having said that, and I just kind of took a drove. Like, I left the building too, and I just took a drive. And
drove? What's a drove?
I took a drove. I took a drove around. I did. I went driving around, and I went to this waterfall, and I was in Utah at this time. It's called, I think, Bridal Veils. But anyway, I went and just kind of contemplated a few things, and I realized, hey, I don't like this anymore, and I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. And so I quit that day. I left that day, and I've never done another one of those kind of meetings before, and it was kind of that drove me out of it. And I went back and I told Holly, I said, hey, guess what? We're just going to do entrepreneur stuff full time now. She was like, all right.
I was in a meeting and I thought it was lame, so I quit my job.
Yep.
That's
And then literally what I did, dude. So I thought that there's no better story opening it up for you with your rant than that.
Screw you guys, I'm out of here. Like, literally, I'm out of here.
So thoughts, Dave. What prompted you to want to rant about webinars and meetings and whatnot?
Well, because meetings are often a waste of time, and there's a number of talks where I've done. When I did one earlier this year where I talked about just getting things done, and ever since I did my first talk with Mr. Simon about internal, like, in-house SEO and stuff, which is always like the least sexy topic to talk about at a conference, because everyone talks about it, and you can, it's like, what do you do? I just talked about just like the waste of time that meetings is. And there's a calculator that I've often dropped links to, and we'll drop a link into it. It's for those that are lazy and don't want to go visit the site. It's battleyinc.com/meeting-ticker. So it's Battley Performance's company or site, but you can put in the number of attendees. You can estimate the hourly rate, and then you time it. And it'll calculate how much in salary you wasted in that meeting.
And hopefully we have like a chief financial officer or someone that is in charge of paying salaries that can look at that and be like, because I think that's brilliant. Be like, wait, how much did we just waste in this meeting?
Yeah. And I've had internal meetings at agencies, and even in when I was in-house, that it's very organized. And it's like, okay, we're going to, here's the news that's coming out. Here's the contracts that are expiring, or here's the clients that are coming on board, or this is where we're at with those things. We might have, it's like a quick update news, and everyone's there. So rather than sending out 50 emails, they want to make sure everyone hears it. And then everyone's given a quick moment to ask a question to the group because we have everyone's attention, and blah, 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 blah. And there's other times where I was in-house where there's an agenda the goal is to cover in that 30 minutes, and we're supposed to stay on it. Just the number of times I've been in a meeting that gets sideways completely because someone doesn't control the agenda, or there is no agenda.
Well,
there is no specific agenda.
You know what I was reading a while ago, and again, like, say what you will about Elon Musk, but I read an article about him and the way that they do meetings, and how if there's a meeting going on and someone that was thought to supposed to be there decides that they don't really need to be in that meeting for whatever, they can just excuse themselves. And I was like, that's brilliant. And so, like, I was thinking, like,
hopefully
that should be
quit.
like a well, yeah. Well, and again, besides, that's why I almost hesitated bringing it up. But as far as like an idea, like I was thinking, just in general for any meetings, like that's just a pretty good. I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good little rule or whatever, like an unwritten rule. Hey, if you figure out that within 5 minutes of this meeting that you're not supposed to be here, or that it really doesn't pertain to you, go ahead and leave and work on something else. Like I thought that concept was pretty smart, but that's just me.
I apply that to meetings, but I also apply it to conferences when I'm at attending a session, and I'm like, oh, this looks really good. I want to see this speaker, or I want to see them talk about this. And then, I go in there and it's not what I thought it was going to be. So that's why if people walk out of my session ever, it doesn't really hurt my feelings. I'm like, I'd rather them go if they already think they know it, or they have a call, or nature's calling. I don't, there's so many different reasons why they could need to leave. Maybe they just got a call and someone was in an accident. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I've never been offended by that.
It doesn't really hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason they're leaving, whether it's me or not. Most likely it's probably not, or the other speaker that I'm sits with. But for me,
and I don't have to please everyone. I'm okay if they think I absolutely suck and they're leaving because of me.
Yeah, it won't hurt my feelings. But in kind of what started this was a webinar that I I know a lot of us get webinars all the time, and we probably sometimes sign up and sometimes don't. Most often I don't attend. I might watch it after the fact, but honestly, most times I don't. I'll just look at the notes and scroll through the deck or something, and get that one or two things I was curious about. But I pushed through and sat through. I think I was doing other things too, and listened to this one, and it was a train wreck. It was horrible. I don't know what's that?
Well, I was just saying it reminds me of, like, something that you and we've been doing this for a while, and one of the, before we even started recording, this was even an idea, I remember one of the things that was super important to you and I was, look, let's just jump right into it. We don't want to be this show where we have 45 minutes of introductions and, hey, how are you, and patting myself on the back, or a guest or whatever. Obviously, we want to introduce the guest and give them time to share with people who they are, but like, just jump into it, just dive into it. And that I think is a formula that's worked well for us.
Yeah, and then this one, it was trying to convince you to do something, and instead of, like, it was interesting. They gave a background and history of it. And it was it's been a couple months now. No one will know what I'm talking about. So it was about podcasting, like why a business should podcast. And I was kind of curious their reasonings and some of their examples they might use.
Gotcha.
And he gave like this long, drawn out history of podcasting, and some of it was interesting. He talked about like Adam Carolla and some of the other stuff, and talked numbers. And I was like, okay, now he's getting somewhere. It was a him or she, I forget. They were getting somewhere, and eventually they kind of, kept going. And I was like, okay, if I'm a marketing manager or brand manager or anyone listening to this, you've not given me one reason other than people listen to podcasts and it's growing so far. And we're already like 25 minutes in. Like, I don't really care about the history of podcasting. I really don't care about the history of this, and we used to do a talk together about content marketing, and I would kind of do a brief history of like what content marketing was or is. And it was just like, the 8 different names it's had. It was just like one slide after another. It's like the 8 different names that content marketing is. And, I showed like the very first piece that I think it was John Deere or Caterpillar that created it. And that was like, of my 15 or 20 minutes, whatever time we had, it was like my first 2 to 4 minutes of just like, because that was what I was supposed to cover and you were covering something else. And, but I just covered a little bit of it just to get the, where it's been. And then we were talking about where it's going.
And that's great. But like an hour of just a history? No.
It just kept going on. And it was like, okay, I'm already sold on, this idea. Give me ammo to take to my boss. Like what case studies have you seen where, it drove business or it drove awareness and, there's, some sort of tie into brand, love, or I don't know, something. And it was just like, and then the very, very end, he covered his 3 reasons, like, it was like 2 reasons or 3 or 4 reasons. And he covered it in like the last 8 minutes. Wow. I was like, really? You made us listen to a 30-minute history lesson so that you could then cover the rest of it in like, I was like, this is like the worst thing in my life that I've like, this is like 45 minutes of my life I can't get back.
No.
But I was like, what was the goal of this like webinar? Or in the same thing, it's like, what is a goal of a meeting? Like, do you just have meetings to have meetings? I think a lot of people do.
Well, I think one of the links that we'll share with everybody that I thought was good that I was looking at was the 8 ground rules for meetings. And I don't know if you want to go over that, if you looked at it, but I was checking that out. And I think it's like a great blueprint if people need a little bit more help or direction with their meetings.
At one point when I was in-house and even at an agency, I got to be, I don't want to say it's not a dick move. It's just, protecting my time. If there was no agenda on an invite for a meeting, I didn't accept it. I just said decline.
Interesting. That's a great rule right there.
Like
these are
literally,
the
if there's no
unwritten Dave
agenda,
rules.
why do I need to be there? Are we talking about an upcoming QBR? Is it a meeting with the internal IT team to talk about an upcoming release? Like, what is the point? Don't just give me a title. Who's going to be there? Why do I need to be there? It doesn't have to be an essay, but it should be a couple points of this is what the goal is and this is what we're trying to get to so that I can be prepared. Or the other thing that always drove me crazy is if you send something out, whether it's with a client or with anyone internally even, it's like, hey, we're going to go over this report. We're going to go over this document. Come with questions. And the first 10 minutes is people looking through it.
Yeah.
That's when you go, all right, we're going to reschedule this meeting. No, wait. No, you guys didn't do it.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Well, and then the other thing, because this is a rant, so I'll just keep ranting. I think is a lot of times when emails just don't stop and you have like 3 or 4 people all in different time zones or even in the same office. All
starting to trigger me already thinking about it.
Yeah. And hitting reply all. I think there's a couple rules for when you should have a meeting. And this is like straight from my one slide that I constantly, go and talk about. But it's like, if there's multiple emails going around constantly and no one is like, everyone just keeps suggesting things. It's almost like, when you're trying to schedule a meeting with someone and you're like, no, let's just pick a time. Like, well, what about these days and these times? No, just pick a time. Don't care. Or when you have more than like 2 people, or 3 or 4 or 5 parties and you need sign off from everyone on the same time, get them in a meeting and make them sit down and be like, all right, here's the agenda. What are your problems with this project? What are your problems? What hesitations do you have? If we did this, would that be okay? Okay, you're a yes. Okay, what's your problem? And like literally go around the room and just sit down everyone and go, okay, we're all agreed we can move forward now, right? Yes. All right, done. Go back. Go away. Yeah, I think it's just, people just want to keep emailing and it's like emailing constantly. And it's like, no, let's sit down, and I did this with a friend of mine recently where we were trying to connect with each other, and she kept texting me and I kept texting her, and I was like, it wasn't answering my question. So I tried calling her, and then she didn't answer her phone. I'm like, you literally just texted me 20 seconds ago. So you're not driving the car. I don't know what you're doing, but you like, just answer the phone because you're not answering my questions. And I think that's how, when you should have meetings,
Yeah.
you know, and you should sit down. I think a lot of people have meetings, or they have, you know, webinars, or they have any sort of presentation like that. And there's like no rhyme and reason. They're not really thinking through the goal of whatever it is, you know. So if you're having a webinar, please think through like what you're selling, and because like I'm never going to go to a webinar again from that company.
Yeah, that's too
I don't
bad.
remember what I know kind of what it was about, but I have no desire to go and listen to people that have talk.
Yeah.
I've unsubscribed and everything. I mean,
Oh, wow.
I was like, what?
Do
I
not
went to
waste
one. I
Dave's
went to
time,
one.
people.
Yeah, well, it was just ridiculously bad. I was like, I'll go to one. Yeah. Shame on me.
Well, just kind of in wrapping it up and closing, like, what would you say? What are your biggest things that people need to be paying attention to make webinars successful and meetings successful?
I think have an agenda, stick to it, and then have, if it's a webinar or something like that, you know, what's the goal? You're trying to get them to something. Don't beat around the bush and give them the history of something. Start talking into different points of how that can help them. Why is my phone going crazy? You know, and same thing for a meeting. I mean, they're not the same, but to me they kind of are. It's like, what's your agenda? What's the goal? What are the takeaways? You know, have your wrap up takeaways at the end. It's like, okay, you know, Matt, you're going to follow up with, you know, Sharon on that, you know, and Susie, you're going to go meet with so-and-so and get approval for that. And then, you know, we have another meeting in 4 days. We're all going to come back. We're all going to have everything done. And then we're going to move forward with, you know, XYZ, right? Yeah. All right, let's go. You know.
Well, and I like what you mentioned earlier about, hey, if people haven't reviewed the documents that have been sent out ahead of time, and we're reviewing it for the first 20 minutes of the meeting, I think you're spot on by saying, all right, meeting canceled, we'll meet again when everyone's done.
Like, oh, you guys didn't go over it? All right, well, I'm leaving.
Yep, I think that's brilliant.
Well, and I once got in trouble because, this is years ago.
Wait, you got in trouble?
I know. Well, because they gave us, everyone had phones, and people would show up to meetings with phones or computers open, because they'd be answering other emails or they'd be texting and stuff. And it's like, are you present for this meeting or are you doing other stuff? Because like, it doesn't make sense for me to be here and waste my time for 30 minutes or 45 minutes.
If you're not even listening to me.
If you're not listening, I don't have your attention, or maybe you say I do, but I really don't.
Yeah, no, not if you're
Because
answering
after
emails.
the fact, you'll ask a question, you know, and someone that does that will ask a question. It's like, we just covered that for the last 5 minutes. What were you doing? Oh, I was writing an email. Well, then get the heck out of here.
Oh yeah, that's
Like,
so annoying.
Are you here or not? Yeah, that would drive me crazy. Like, because they were like, where's your phone? I'm like, at my desk, you know.
Where it should be, where yours should be.
I'm like, everyone that would probably be emailing me is in this meeting. Well, I just emailed you something. Well, I'll look at it after. We're here for a meeting, or I'm going to leave the meeting. Like, I don't know. I'm an old curmudgeon fart. I don't know. I hate meetings to begin with, so if you're going to have them, make them useful.
Tell us how you really feel about meetings, Dave.
I don't like them.
All right. Well, I think
Dave's rant over.
End Dave rant. No, I think those are some great points. So I think people can get a lot. You know, whether you're just a single person, or you're working in an agency, or you're in house for someone, or whatever. I think all of this is great information that you could take and use, because every one of us has to deal with webinars at some point. We all have to deal with meetings, and so I think those simple steps, like you talked about, making sure that agenda is set and everybody.
Oh, watch how many people get pissed when you just decline a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
We know about, like, people get pissed when you decline a meeting and just be like, no agenda. Like, you know,
It's a
in
good
the
teaching
answer, it's
opportunity,
like,
yeah.
no agenda, sorry, not attending. Or just let them know and say, I'm not attending a meeting if they don't have an agenda, because I don't know why I'm there.
And that right there is reason enough, and a good reason for
It pisses people off, though.
That's a good. It does, and I understand
I don't
why
care.
you like that. But like at the same time, I'm looking at it as a teaching moment. but
I think it's funny.
bonus if you can piss people. All right. Well, rant over. Hopefully you guys got something from that. Any final thoughts, Dave? Or are you good?
If you like this rant and you want to hear more, go give us a nice review on iTunes or Facebook. Yeah.
All right.
Nope, that's it.
Do it 'cause Dave
feel
said to
free
do
to
it.
annoy people. It'll be very amusing when you watch them freak out.
So if you got nothing from this webinar other than decline meetings, you're welcome.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, for Dave Rohr with Northside Metrics, I'm Matt Siltel with Avalanche Media. Thank you guys for joining us on the latest episode. Bye, guys.